Hi, welcome to A Great Barn Rising. I'm so happy you could join us this evening. I'm sitting here, of course, with Bootsy, the best beagle in the world, and I'm reading the poems this evening of the monumental American poet Adrienne Rich. Adrienne Rich lived from 1929 to 2012, and she's a poet of great passion and emotion and keen intellect and political smarts. She has exerted such a profound influence on American poetry, it's almost difficult to chronicle. I'd like to read from several of her books this evening, and I want to begin with a couple of poems from her most famous collection, Diving into the Wreck. And this first poem I'd like to read has a really interesting and unique title. The Ninth Symphony of Beethoven, understood at last as a sexual message. A man in terror of impotence or infertility, not knowing the difference. A man trying to tell something, howling from the climacteric music of the entirely isolated soul. Yelling at joy from the tunnel of the ego. Music without the ghost of another person in it. Music trying to tell something the man does not want out, would keep if he could, gagged and bound and flogged with cords of joy, where everything is silence and the beating of a bloody fist upon a splintered table. After 20 years, and the dedication is by initials for APC. Two women sit at a table by a window. Light breaks unevenly on both of them. Their talk is a striking of sparks which passers-by in the street observe as a glitter in the glass of that window. Two women in the prime of life. Their babies are old enough to have babies. Loneliness has been part of their story for 20 years. The dark edge of the clever tongue, the obscure underside of the imagination. It is snow and thunder in the street. While they speak, the lightning flashes purple. It is strange to be so many women, eating and drinking at the same table, those who bathed their children in the same basin, who kept their secrets from each other, walked the floors of their lives in separate rooms, and flow into history now as the woman of their time, living in the prime of life, as in a city where nothing is forbidden and nothing permanent. Such a beautifully and powerfully emotive poem. I'd like to turn now to The Dream of a Common Language and share one of Adrienne Rich's love poems. She has a section of 21 love poems in this book. And I want to read for you the second of these, and it's simply as carries the Roman numeral 2, where its title would be. I wake up in your bed. I know I have been dreaming. Much earlier, the alarm broke us from each other. You've been at your desk for hours. I know what I dreamed. Our friend, the poet, comes into my room, where I've been writing for days. Drafts, carbons, poems are scattered everywhere. And I want to show her one poem, which is the poem of my life. But I hesitate and wake. You've kissed my hair to wake me. I dreamed you were a poem, I say, a poem I wanted to show someone. And I laugh and fall dreaming again of the desire to show you to everyone I love, to move openly together in the pull of gravity, which is not simple, which carries the feathered grass a long way down the up-breathing air. Boy, the profundity of that closing, the complexity and paradox of a long way down the up-breathing air always blows me away. I'd like to turn now to some of her more experimental poems, her ghazals. As many of you may know, the ghazal is an ancient Persian form, and it normally carries a traditional rhyme and metric scheme, although many contemporary American poets have played around with the form and have adopted that form and adapted that form in some really interesting ways, not using it in the traditional way, which I think is a very powerful exercise for poets to do when they play around with forms. One of the great practitioners of the ghazal was a poet from ancient times by the name of Ghalib. And Adrienne Rich has a couple of poems called Ghazals, Homage to Ghalib. And the ghazal itself is a poem that is epigrammatic in terms of how it moves. It also carries a kind of terseness to it, and a great profundity that is gathered through the accretion of images and the leaping between its couplets. The ghazal is written in couplets. And so I want to share with you some of her ghazals. This first is from Ghazals, Homage to Ghalib, as I said. And these do not have titles, but they do have dates at the top. And this particular ghazal is for Sheila Rotner. And this is July 12th, 1968. The clouds are electric in this university. The lovers astride the tractor burn fissures through the hay. When I look at that wall, I shall think of you and of what you did not paint there. Only the truth makes the pain of lifting a hand worthwhile. The prism staggering under the blows of a raga, of the raga. The vanishing point is the point where he appears. Two parallel tracks converge, yet there has been no wreck. To mutilate privacy with a single foolish syllable is to throw away the search for the one necessary word. When you read these lines, think of me and of what I have not written here. From the same sequence, July 17th, 68. Armitage of scrap iron for the radiations of a moon. Flower cast in metal. Picasso woman. Sister. Two hesitant Luna moths regard each other with the spots on their wings, fascinated. To resign yourself, what an act of betrayal. To throw a runaway spirit back to the dogs. When the ebb tide pulls hard enough, we are all starfish. The moon has her way with us, my companion in crime. At the aquarium that day, between the white whale's loneliness and the grouper's mass promiscuities, only ourselves. You can hear the associative leaps that the ghazal, by virtue of the couplets, enables and encourages. In her book, The Will to Change, she has another series of ghazals called the Blue Ghazals, and I'd like to share two of those with you this evening. And like the other ghazals, they don't have titles, they just have dates at the top. September 21st, 68. violently asleep in the old house. A clock stays awake all night, ticking, turning their bruised leaves. The trees stay awake all night in the wood. Talk to me with your body through my dreams. Tell me what we are going through. The walls of the room are muttering. Old trees, old utopians arguing with the wind. To float like a dead man in a sea of dreams, and half those dreams being dreamed by someone else. 15 years of sleepwalking with you, waiting against the tide and with the tide. And then finally, I'd like to close the reading of Rich this evening with another ghazal, September 23rd, 68. One day of equinoctial light after another, moving ourselves through gauzes and fissures of that light. Early and late I come and set myself against you, your phallic fist knocking blindly at my door. The dew is beaded like mercury on the coarsened grass, the web of the spiders heavy as if with sweat. Everything is yielding toward a foregone conclusion. Only we are rash enough to go on changing our lives. An Ashanti woman tilts the flattened basin on her head to let the water slide downward. I am that woman and that water. I love the way Rich moves into so many aspects of the universe in that closing ghazal that I just read for you. I read this evening from the ghazals I read from collection of her poems, The Fact of a Door Frame, and I also read from some earlier editions, The Dream of a Common Language, and of course, Diving into the Wreck. Rich's work is readily available, and I strongly encourage you to seek it out. It's deep and profound, and it will yield many hours of enjoyment for you. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of A Great Barn Ride.